Dr. Jena Field. I'm working as a coach and a therapist and director for about 25 years, and I've been with Pineapple since the beginning, so that's exciting. We're gonna have a great panel today. We have got, I think there's 3 of us on the discussion on the topic of invisible disabilities. This is a new and very topical theme. And like you, it's an area of interest for me. I'm learning about it every day, and there's a lot to learn. So I went to the Invisible Disabilities Project for a definition. Their definition is any physical, mental, emotional impairment that goes largely unnoticed. An invisible disability can include, but is not limited to, cognitive impairments, brain injury, the autism spectrum, that'd be me, chronic illness like multiple sclerosis, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, deafness and or hard of hearing, blindness and or low vision, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and many more. We understand that the body is always changing, so disability and chronic illness may be unstable or periodic through one's life. And because everyone's experience with invisible disability is unique, today we will get a little insight into the people on the panel's experience with invisible disabilities. So to jump right in, I'd like to ask our panelists actually to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their personal experience with invisible disability. Eve, would you like to start?
Sure, not a problem. I am Eve BATELLE. I've been around the adult industry for 13 years now. And my invisible disabilities, I have fibromyalgia, restless leg syndrome. I've had 2 spine surgeries after car accidents, ADHD, OCD personality, and anxiety from PTSD situations. So that is a laundry list of things that I know that affect me in my work on a daily basis, if not weekly, depending on which diagnosis out of the hat we're pulling, and people really don't realize it. So that's me.
Thank you, thank you. And Fox, nice to meet you too. Would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your personal experience with invisible disabilities?
Yeah, if I can unmute myself. Hi, I am Fox, and I have been in the adult industry for about a decade. I have been a professional dominatrix and an online content creator and influencer. I also do kink education and educational live streams about kink and domination in the adult industry and miseducation about all of the above. I also live with autism and chronic pain that I've had since I was 11. It is musculoskeletal, which means that it's a joint and muscle issue. So it's like all of my joints and all my muscles, if I could explain it in ways that are understandable to other people, I usually say it feels like if you had a Charlie horse and every muscle in your body at the same time. So that is the kind of thing that you look at somebody, and especially if they're not like a total raging bitch all the time, and you know, and they have like, you know, some happiness and they're not outwardly suffering. A lot of people are like, oh, well, you're not in pain. There's no way you're in pain. They don't even think of it as a possibility because people associate that with a bad attitude. So yeah, it's interesting being a happy disabled person for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, great. Okay, so about me, I have ADHD and high functioning autism. And I didn't realize I had autism until a little later in life, as in over the last couple of years. So when I was younger, I felt like an outsider, like everyone else knew the rules, but I couldn't quite find the rule book. So this meant that I was a little awkward growing up, and I'd start to make friends, and then I get too excited or be too direct, and tend to lose them. Yeah, so for me, at age 14, I had a psychology class, and that kind of like opened my eyes. I thought, wow, I can find a rule book. I can learn how people, you know, what the rules are, and hopefully that will help me to understand human behavior and a little bit more about how I can find love and acceptance. And to this day, I'm kind of still learning. Yeah. So I also have ADHD, which, you know, is a lot of things like time blindness, of losing things and breaking things and forgetting things, which presents a lot of issues where people just think, you know, that I'm lazy, or that I'm, you know, that I don't care. Those kind of things come up. So that's always frustrating, because these days I'm doing my best, right? I'm trying to manage as best I can, and sometimes those things just kind of fall down. So that's me. Yeah, so if one of you would like to answer this question, you guys can decide which one. What's it like for you when you're expected to kind of push past your limits?
I can go first. I think that I have this thing where I like to prepare, I like to over prepare for not having enough energy. I like to assume that I will always have 10% of the energy that I want to have. And if I have more energy than that, then that's great. But I just always assume that I'm going to have like 10% of the energy that I want to have. So I really have like arranged my life in a way where there are just things that I won't do. Like, you know, I just say, like, for instance, knowing that I was going to be doing something at a specific time and not like left to my own devices, like, oh, if I feel like it, like kind of deal. Today, and being on this call, I spent most of the last few days like giving myself a lot of extra time, a lot of extra freedom, knowing that I was sort of gonna like have to dip into the energy bank today to like get myself on my game and like, you know, look like a person and all of the above. So I think like for me, I think that I know that I can plan for like my own disability. I can accommodate for it ahead of time. So I don't feel like I'm ever like, I just keep pushing past my limits. Like, yeah, I'm challenged every day and I have things that I can't prepare for, but I have arranged my life at this point as such that it is really easy for me to give myself more, like so much more room, and then just feel good about it later. You know, I can just be like, oh yeah, like cool, I did that and I still have energy. Let me go do something else. So I have like also like ongoing task lists and one-off task lists. So like I can, if I have a certain amount of time, I have like a 30-minute task list, and I can be like, oh well, I think I have energy for like a 30-minute task. So I'll go in and I'll go to my 30-minute task list, or like if I want to work on something that like I just want to kind of zone out on, I'll go to an ongoing task and I'll say like, okay, I want to like reorganize this thing, or I want to edit these videos. I also tend to arrange my life such that I'm doing things that take the same kind of energy all at the same time. So for instance, it's a different kind of energy for me to get up and set up my lights and set up my camera and put my makeup on and make content, that is a very different kind of energy for me to spend than editing the content in my pajamas with a hot chocolate later. And I don't have to be like sitting up straight and like worried about, is my back gonna hurt later from this? Like how often am I gonna need to change positions, things like that. Where like streaming is similar. It's like streaming is so painful for me sometimes just because I have to sit in one position for a really long time and like in a way that's flattering to me, which is not usually the thing that's the least painful for me. So yeah, so I find that like when it comes to like pushing past my limits, like I have really over prepared for that so that it doesn't ever I feel like I'm being pushed to my limit, but I don't feel like I'm being pushed past my limit because I put my limit real low. I said it's like I'm sure it's because y'all have ADHD, you guys understand the whole I'm gonna aim to get out of the house by 10 when I really want to get out of the house by 11. It's that kind of thing where I'm just giving myself so much more room than I'm gonna need so that later I don't have that feeling of, oh my God, I'm just so burnt out. Because honestly, like having any kind of chronic illness or invisible disability is really freaking exhausting for a million reasons, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically, it doesn't matter. It's so freaking exhausting. And so it's so easy for us to be burned out just because we took a shower. And so like, that's the kind of thing that I'm just like, if I can take a shower, I'm winning. Like I set up my life so that like, even when I shower, I'm like accounting for, okay, I'm going to need to shower this day. It's going to need to happen. And up until then, I can do this, and this, and this thing to keep my hygiene so that I don't feel gross, but also so that like I am not overworking myself and overworking my body, because showering is a very physically intense thing for me and it can get really draining. So that's kind of like my thing is I just look at like what takes the most energy, even if it's things that like other people are like, oh, I just brush my teeth twice a day. And I'm like, you just do that casually. That's dope. Like, yeah, he's just like, and so it's like even things like that, like I just understand for myself that brushing my teeth takes a certain amount of energy that is not equal to the amount of energy that it takes a lot of other people. And that's okay. It just means that in order to not be pushed past my limits, I need to put the line so much closer. And I need to give myself a lot more space and freedom and forgiveness when it comes to what I accomplish and what I don't accomplish. And I really have like my like absolutely necessary needs to get done on this day type of thing. And then I also have things that are just like, okay, this has some flexibility. This is the amount of flexibility I have. So I feel like a lot of it just comes down to like planning. I like planning. I like whiteboards. So yeah, that's my answer.
That's great. And I love that. I love the idea of celebration when you do that. That kind of, yay, I set out to have a shower and I have a shower and this is what I knew I could do and I did it. And that's a great way to get those positive brain chemicals going. So, you're reinforcing what you're planning and setting out to do. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So Eve, would you like to say something about what it's like for you to push past your limits?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say a lot like what Fox was saying. Setting boundaries is so unbelievably important. So there are just certain things that I say no to. There just has to be. There are certain things that I know, like going into AVN's week. Anybody who's been to AVN's in Vegas knows that no matter how much you plan, you do get pushed past your limit. You can organize, plan, budget your time, but eventually at the end of that week-long event, you're exhausted. You regardless if you're burnt out or not, it's just a matter of we've peopled so much during that week and had our energy absorbed by fans, and it's fantastic and amazing and it's a positive experience, but at the same time it is draining. And so there are those things that are worth it and are positive, but then I usually budget almost a week afterwards. Now this year we have XBiz like 2 days later. So knowing that, I have to budget, okay, well, instead of staying and doing all the XBiz parties, I'm gonna stay at my friends in LA's house, and that way I get some sleep and recuperate a little bit in between. So that way when X3 comes immediately after XBiz, I'm gonna be able to people some more. So there's boundaries, there's expectations, and then there's the reality that, hey, I may have to skip certain things to take care of me. And again, that's part of the boundaries part that I know took me a long time to figure out were important. Because I would see, you know, people would make requests, custom requests for clips or sessions or whatnot. And I would see it all as an opportunity and money making. And I'd say yes to everything. And then my body would break down. I would have burnout. My fibromyalgia would get so angry that I would be in bed almost catatonic for a week. And it took a couple times of that happening for me to realize, okay, my body just doesn't operate that way anymore. So I had to learn to really listen to my body and choose, okay, these are the things that I can do. This is like Fox was saying, allowing yourself to, okay, this is where I can go. I'm going to allow myself this much buffer room before it actually hits my limit. So that way, if I do actually hit my limit, then that little extra, yeah, may hurt, but I'm not going to absolutely kill myself for something that I could have maybe pushed that project off by a week or 2 weeks by setting a boundary and saying, no, I can't do that this week. No, that's not a session that I can take on. And honestly, if they really want the custom, they really want the session, they really want whatever it is, they'll wait. They'll wait for us. And so it's so important to really put your well-being above, and I say above money, but it is the fact that if they really want it, they'll wait. The money will be there. It's better to not break your body down until you can't use it, because then you're out of commission for a couple weeks, and all that money that you could have been making doing sales during those weeks, does it really balance out? No, in the long run, from personal experience, it doesn't. It puts you out of commission far worse than if you just were to set a boundary, say no, or say, hey, not right now. And then also when piggybacking off of what Fox is saying about this, you know, certain things are higher energy than others. The way I divvy up my things is when I know I want to film. So I've got a bunch of customs I need to film. I know the props and the type of lighting and the costumes that I need to get together. So I'll set it up one day. I'll get my room set up with all the props, all the costumes, all the lighting, everything set up one day, because then I'm exhausted. And then I'll film the next day, because then I just have to walk in the room and film. Whatever ends up working for you, there's a million different ways that you can do it to make it work for you. That's just what happens to work for me. But there's just ways to, it's like work smarter, not harder. That's really what you got to do to, and in your own way, whatever, something that feels taxing for me may not be taxing for you. But figure that out, figure out where your body seems to max out, and then really be kind to it, because it is our moneymaker. And it is, I mean, it's all we got till the day we die. So got to take care of it.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. I really like the idea of the trial and error, the kind of be your own scientist, that you're going, okay, so even the fact that you put in a buffer, I mean, that's so much ramped up self-care. That's I am inspired. For me, I get really anxious when I push past my boundaries, or push past my, you know, my limits. And sometimes I even lose my voice because I don't have a boss. Most of the time, it's me pushing myself past my limits. And I used to do it a lot more kind of pre-diagnosis, because I believe that I should be able to do everything that other people do. And I'm a psychologist, so you know, I should be able to manage my anxieties. Yeah. And but the truth is, I do manage my anxieties, but I do that not by suppressing them or talking myself out of them, but rather just accepting that they're there and showing them loads of compassion. And today is even really outside of my comfort zone, because I have a fear of public speaking, but I felt, you know, that mental health is, you know, important. Mental health education is important. It was important for me to do this. So what I've done is I've packed in a lot of prep with lots of people kind of cheerleading me before, and then I'll have some downtime after. And I'm going to instill some things from you guys, like the buffer. I love the buffer. And and I'm, you know, still on that journey trying to figure out where, how far I actually can do that. So I thank you guys for answering in the way that you have, because I find it really educational. So yeah, the next question is, how do you handle negative reactions from people who are unaware of your disabilities? Do you tell them about your disabilities, or do you keep quiet when this happens? And Eve, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm kind of a loud advocate. I'm one of those that I don't mind getting the, I'm the mama bear. So I don't mind sitting there and saying, hey, you know what? Not just me, but so many of us deal with these things. This is what I'm going through. And you have no idea how many other people are going through this. So maybe take a step back before you do that. And a lot of times it's because I know other people either don't have that confidence or don't have that confidence to say that and be an advocate for themselves. A lot of people are afraid to be an advocate for themselves. And so if I am more than happy to be that person. And so were you wanting to say something? I saw you. Fox. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just, I saw, like, my phone gave me a little notification that someone had sent in a new question, and I was just looking at it.
But I'm a loud advocate, so I have no problem telling them. And if they're rude about it, then, you know, the block button's really easy, the mute button's real easy, but I'm a sassy bitch. So, oh, I don't know if this is going on YouTube, sorry. But I mean, I'm a dom by nature. So if you're gonna be disrespectful to me or anyone in my community, like, it's easy to explain to people, but it's not always in their scope to understand it. And that's on them. So, but yeah, I'm always a loud advocate. So feel free, come to me. I will explain it to you. If you are an understanding person, then we can have a legit conversation about it, and an educational one, and we can see each other's side. But if you're just here to trash people, then let's get snarky and then get blocked, you know? That's just me though.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, so Fox, go ahead, sorry.
Oh yeah. I just was gonna say it's interesting the way you said when you said what you said about how like you're a dom by nature, and so you're ready for that. I think that's so interesting because one of the things I'm a huge advocate for as a dom is that to be a sex worker, specifically a dominatrix, you have to be the source, right? Like as a dom, what we are is a source of stability for people. And so if we are not stable and investing in our own stability, then we cannot do our job literally, because we have nothing to provide people because we're unstable. And so any stability that we offer them is going to be basically a lie. So it's like, I think that's really interesting that you said that. It just made me think of that. But also, like, I'm a huge advocate for people who are coming into sex work outside of domination and think that that means that they have to do everything that someone's telling them to do. They think that like to be like a submissive cam girl or something, anything along that line, means that like then you're like everybody's submissive. But that is so freaking unhealthy. And it actually, like, I think that like one of the things I love so much about sex work is that it is the business of intimacy. And so like really what we provide for people on every end of the spectrum is intimacy. And when you are providing people intimacy coming from instability or insecurity or like trauma-based responses, you're almost always going to create an unhealthy environment for the client, because you're either going to be enabling something that really doesn't need to be being enabled, which is again like what you were saying about how it's like, yeah, if you are going to be an asshole, then like, you know, maybe I don't need your money. Like maybe you just don't get the reward that you would get if you were like, you know, a decent person. Imagine like me wanting to do things for you instead of you just like making me angry. But I think that like there is this really interesting sense of entitlement that it is like has become more and more prevalent in the audience community, like in the client community, because so many people have been coming into the field having absolutely no expertise or interest in getting any. And so people are just entering this business of intimacy without being able to provide intimacy for people. And it is harmful. It's harmful mentally, it's harmful emotionally, and sometimes it's harmful physically. If you know, I always say that like for me, the line between a dom and an abuser is the moment you stop respecting the submissive. Because if you don't respect the person you're dominating, you're not dominating them. You are abusing them. You might be abusing them for money, but it's still abuse. And you know, like some people actually are looking for that, but when you call it domination, it totally degrades what domination is. And I think like, you know, like I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but it's just, I think that for me it's not about like getting negative feedback necessarily, because I just don't really think of things in terms of like negative and positive. I'm just kind of like, all right, that's what that is. Like because I think if I assign that kind of like good bad to everything, then I think it's gonna end up being really arbitrary and messing me up, which it has in the past. So, you know, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier with like, you know, blaming ourselves for like not getting things done and not doing things and things like that. I think that when I assign like good and bad and positive and negative to things, I end up in headspaces where I am really unhealthy because I'm saying it's bad that I did this, it's good that I did that, versus I took a shower today, I don't know what that is, but I did it. That's cool. Like, I feel good about it. That's great. That's all I need. So I think like for me, it's like if I'm proud of what I'm doing, and people always come to me and they're like, "What do you think about like how should I have handled this?" And I'm like, "Listen, are you proud of how you handle it? Are you proud of it? Are you proud of the choices you made?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, but like I don't know, like the reaction was this and that." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you. Are you proud of the choices you made? Because if you're not, then all you got to do is make different choices. And if you are, then I'm not sure what the question is." So, like, if I'm being asked to do something that I'm not going to feel proud of doing, then I'm probably going to say no. And I think, like, a lot of times what I don't feel proud of doing, and this might be because of my autism, is enabling the societal structures that cause people to engage in things like toxic masculinity and just like depressive insecurity, like which I think is like honestly different than depression because it's like people are so deeply insecure that it almost is the insecurity itself is traumatizing and they're traumatized by their own insecurity. And so they're like, oh, like I gotta go overcompensate and I gotta go do this. And then we get all these people in our inboxes who are like, I could fix you. Like so I just think it's really interesting, like the idea that it's like negative feedback versus like just people who are living in their trauma and barfing it on me. And it's not my responsibility. I'm not their therapist. I am somebody who can provide therapy like situations and environments and things that are growth opportunities for people, but I'm not a licensed therapist, and I that's not what you're paying me for. If you were paying me for that, you'd be paying me a heck of a lot more. So I think like I think, and this kind of goes back to energy too, and like I think of my energy as my value. And so like when I spend energy, I'm spending money, and that's my budget, like literally. And so like is the money, time, energy, resources, whatever that I'm spending on something actually going to be an investment, or is it just going to be me like pouring energy into something and not getting any kind of return? And I think that when I get messages that are like people who are upset with whatever for no reason, they're just they want something to be upset about, and we're easy. We're just a easy target. We're there, and people think that we're not real people. So it's really easy to dehumanize us and put us in positions where we just take the brunt of their stuff. And so I don't like when that happens. I'm just like, all right, listen, like if you want this clip, you can pay for it and you can get it. If you don't, I'll refund you, and someone else will pay me for a clip, because that's just how that is. And if I don't feel like me spending the time, energy, whatever it takes to make this content that you bought from me is actually going to be worth the money that you're paying for it, then I'm not going to feel proud of myself once I've finished it, and therefore I am going to make a different choice, and I'm probably not going to do it. So I don't really think of it in terms of like positive or negative feedback. I think of it more as like just people. We are very easy targets for people to throw up their own stuff on, and so like sometimes the issue is just it's so not about. And anytime anybody's upset with me, I'm like, this isn't even about me. This isn't even about me. I don't know what you're upset about right now, but like it's not even about me, because I'm having a perfectly fine conversation with you and you are like yelling. So I don't. There's some kind of disconnect, and it's not on my end. So yeah, so that's my. I sort of just look at it like, okay, you're going through something. You do that. But I don't need to be responsible for it, and I don't need to invest my time and energy into someone else's trauma. I've got enough of my own.
I love that. I love the idea of reframing it is not, it's almost, I almost envision like a package. You're trying to give me this, you're trying to give me the shame, you're trying to give me this guilt. I'm just going to take this package and I'm going to either set it down or I'm going to give it back, right? This is not, there's nothing to do with me. This is to do with you. That's great. That's great. I'm in a slightly different situation as a therapist. So when I do things like I mess up schedules or I misremember something or something like that, I tend to just apologize rather than saying, you know, this is because I have ADHD or this is because you know, I'm hypersensitive and feeling overstimulated, that kind of thing. If with friends and stuff, I'll use that language, but in work, I haven't quite, I'm still learning how to advocate for myself, really. And I'm training, now that I'm going on this journey of learning myself, I'm also training to be an ADHD and autism coach. So I'm also learning how to help other people advocate for themselves too. And it is a journey. And I really appreciate you guys. I feel like you guys have really got these things sorted. And I find it so inspiring. I do. So the last question is, well, it's multiple questions of a two-part questions. One is, what helps you cope? And you guys have gone over this a little bit. If you want to add some to that, what helps you cope? And how can others support you in this with your invisible disabilities and how you manage it? Yeah. Okay. So who wants to go first? Eve, Fox, either one of you?
I can go first. I think that a lot of it again comes down to just knowing yourself and being able to pivot really easily. Like no plan is set in stone. I was talking to my astrologer recently and she was like, hey, are you like married to this? And I was like, babe, with my lifestyle, I can't be married to anything. Like, and I think that that actually is what brings me a lot of peace of mind because when I was in college, I had somebody in my life who told me something that changed my life forever. And he said, yeah, we were Skyping one night, Skype, and he was like, hey, I figured out the secret to never being disappointed ever. And I was like, that's cool. Hit me. And he goes, never expect anything. And I was like, oh, that'll do it. And I think that for me, like, that's really how I live is like, if I expect things, I will be disappointed. And I think that comes into every aspect of my life, especially just my own expectations of my body. You know, like I used to be like a martial arts instructor and a dance instructor, and like I used to do marching band and like, you know, all these crazy athletic things. And now I'm really like happy if I don't throw up in the shower. And that's like a celebration day. And I think that like expecting my body to perform at levels that it can't anymore or it can't right now is just like really detrimental to my own health and ends up getting me in those headspaces where I'm like having all these opinions about myself that don't actually make any sense. Like I'm a failure and I'm worthless and all these things that aren't real. Just because I feel like my value has been interrupted by my capabilities changing from day to day and sometimes from moment to moment, you know? So it's like, I definitely think like my expectations and not having them is a huge part of like my coping, I guess. But I also have just friends who listen and are willing to call me out on things. And not let me suffer and check in about stuff and be accountability for me, and take on some of, like, I like to outsource a lot of stuff. Like if there's something that I just do not have the energy for, and then I know someone else, it doesn't take as much energy for them, or they enjoy it more than I do, then I'll just reach out to them and I'll say, hey, can you do this thing for me? Can you help me be my executive function for like a minute? And my sister has described it really well. Once I was like really getting on myself for like not being able to function. And my sister was like, the bridge is up. And I was like, what? And she goes, well, yeah, normally you drive from point A to point B and it works because there's a bridge there. But right now your bridge is up. That's all executive dysfunction is. It's just the bridge is up. You got to find another way around. And sometimes that's not as easy to do when you're so used to one route and you're like, but it should work, but it just doesn't right then. So sometimes you just need somebody to help you be a bridge, find a bridge, find some other way to get around. And so like, I think like that definitely having a huge support system, and not like huge, like a ton of people, but like just very quality people. Yeah, strong. Like it was like, yeah. So I think like definitely, the way that people can help me the most is honestly money. And I know that that sounds really like, I don't know, materialistic or something, but for me, like I said earlier, for me, my energy is money. And so when people can help provide for me financially, they're literally giving me energy. They are giving me time. They are giving me space to heal, because that's time that I otherwise might have had to spend trying to make that money and trying to like find that value in another way that would be so draining and end up messing me up later, like you were talking about earlier, you. So yeah, I think definitely like, like it's not the most fun answer, because it's not something that's actually like super attainable for everybody right now. Everybody's really hurting financially right now, and it's not easy for people to just be like, yeah, let me help you out financially. But it makes such a difference for people with disabilities, especially chronic disabilities that are invisible, and the expectations of us, not from ourselves, but other people's expectations of us, is that because we look like they feel, we feel like they feel, because we look like they like somebody that they can get along with, we automatically think the same way they do, and our brains work the same way, and things like that, which just doesn't end up, again, like this is the business of intimacy. And when people are trying to get intimate with a version of you that's like so off base, that it's just like so not grounded in reality. It's not even just like the fantasy of you, it's like a fantasy, a straight up fantasy. Like there's no you in it. Like maybe it looks like you, but it's like the AI version, like created by Lenza with like an eyeball that's this big over here, and so I think like definitely just like space, time, resources, anything that you can provide somebody with an invisible illness, like, is going to be useful. And so like if your love language is like gifts or acts of service, like find you a spoonie, because they will take
That's
that.
great. Thanks, folks. We have just a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to say, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah,
in terms of
know.
what helps you cope and how to support?
I know I second what Fox said about having a strong support system. It doesn't need to be a big one, just a strong one, a solid one that, when you're having one of those days that your executive function is malfunctioning, that you can call on, whether it be just for emotional support, to vent to ask for actual physical support, or whatever. I know my coping mechanism when I'm just stuck in either brain fog or dysfunction, whatever it is, I'll take my iPad and I've got a sushi spot that I love. And he knows I don't always come in and have a bunch of money to spend on like, hey, I want to stay here for a couple hours and dine out. Sometimes I go in, I get a little snack and a little sake, and I sit there and I will bang out my blog, or I will edit and write out my descriptions for my clips or whatever it may be. But I have found like my happy place that I can go to, and I know the owners, I know a lot of the regulars that go there. So it's a safe place that I can, it's my safe space, but it is, it's out in public, but it changes my mindset. So with my ADHD, when I'm at home, there's so many distractions because my dog, my this, my that's going off. Go to a different location. Those people that are encouraging to you, that make you feel good, even if they're not, like my sushi chef isn't my support system, but he kind of is, because I'll go there and he's like, what you working on today? Which, you know, and he knows, they know. So they're like, okay, what interesting things did you get to do today? And I get pumped up, and all of a sudden I'm in a totally different mindset. And my friends are the same way. My friends are my family. I've chosen family. And I can call them and be like, I'm having a day. And they're like, let me buy you a drink, then let's go to my house and we'll have a, you know, a venting sesh or whatever. You need that. Even if it's just one person, you need to have a place to go, a person to call. And that really is what can make everything and almost anything better. It really can, especially when you're hurting and in pain, when you have somebody that knows, because all these people on the internet, they don't know. All these people buying your content, they don't know, may not know. But somebody who knows, that's who you call, and that's who's going to fix this. Because yeah, you know what, and what can help? Engagement. You know what, if you don't have the money to spend to help, engagement is free. Heart something, retweet something, share something on another platform. It is free. And that is honestly the biggest thing that you can do to help anybody. It's not even just us with invisible disabilities. Anybody that you care about, that you want to support, and you don't have the money to send to them to support in that way, to give them, like she was saying, more time, more space to recover, support them with engagement, because that honestly is a huge game changer that can get their name out and face out to new buyers. So it's really important, and free. So just hit that little like button, that little retweet button, and do it often, and it makes a world of difference. It means a lot.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I love that. It's kind of a way to connect without actually going out and having to expend that extra energy, especially if you don't have it, right? You can just sit in your apartment or your house and send out a little bit of love and feel that little bit of connection, re-energize. I would just add, basically, what I have, or helps me cope, is kind of radical acceptance. Like, that's, you know, this is where I am, and I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to work around it. I love the analogy of the bridge. A bridge is down, go around, find a way around. There's, you know, creative problem solving, right? How are we going to, this is where we are, how are we going to get where we need to be? Outsourcing is great as well. I have a kind of pay-as-you-go admin who, you know, she can do in a couple of hours what it would take me days to do. So that's really invaluable. Recovery time and compassion. Those things are the things that have really helped me. And also is with others is looking for people, asking for people to trust you when we say that you have these disabilities, because I think a lot of people are just now starting to express this to friends and stuff, and I think a lot of people want me to be okay, so they're like, oh no, you're fine, no you don't. They dismiss or minimize what the impact it is that has on me, and so what's really important to me is having people who trust me and who listen and who are willing to creatively problem solve with me as well. So that's it for us. Does anybody want to add anything else? You guys want to add anything else? I think we had a question, but
I saw the question. Somebody had asked something about what choices have we made about what we keep private and what we share with our viewers and fans. I say honestly, whatever I feel like. Pretty simple. It's just like, if I feel like having conversations about my illness today, then I'll have a conversation about my illness today. I'm not going to say I feel that way all the time, but when I do, yeah, absolutely, I will say things about it. Generally, I don't want to be like the disabled Dom. I don't want my disability to define me. So it's like something that I talk about as an experience I'm going through, and not so much as like, something I'm suffering from. But also it has made some like really not so fun impacts on my life that that have caused me to need to reach out sometimes and just be like, listen, like, guys, if y'all sent me $1 right now, I can pay my rent for 3 months. Like, so I think like stuff like that, where it's just like, it really just depends on my own energy levels and how much I feel like talking about it. And if I don't feel like I'm going to have the energy for the follow-up conversations about it, then I probably won't bring the topic up at all.
I know that I have been fairly open with just about everything. But again, like you said, when I have the energy to talk about it, you don't always have the energy. And that is, we don't owe anybody anything. We don't owe anybody an explanation. If you say no to something, you don't owe them anything. So if you want to talk about it, if you're comfortable with it and you want to say, hey, this is why, maybe in a couple weeks I'll feel up to it, but however you want to do it. But if that person's being, belligerent and you just want to say no, just say no. You owe them absolutely nothing at any point in time, no matter how much money they've spent on you, no matter how long they've been around. You never owe them anything. You don't owe other members of the community anything. You don't owe anybody an explanation. So never feel like you have to tell anybody anything for any reason. If you're canceling something, you're canceling something. It's just a matter of your comfort level, your energy levels. Like I know me personally, I don't post anything about like my family or anything like that, but my illnesses, I've been fairly open. I've had those 2 spine surgeries. I've had a couple stomach surgeries. I've had 9 surgeries. None of them have been like, I got a boob job or anything. I've had 9 medically required urgent surgeries. And I've been pretty public about them while keeping a lot of details to myself. I've still talked about it. So just figure out what you're comfortable with, and remember, you owe nobody anything.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. So just finishing up, thank you, Fox. Thank you, Eve. This has been phenomenal. I thank you so much for all of your insight and energy. And yeah, I've actually taken notes. I'm going to take some of this stuff away and practice it myself. So I really appreciate you being here today. And yeah, Thank you all.
Hey
Thank you,
guys,
Pineapple.
how are you all doing?
You
I just wanted
well.
to jump in quickly just to say that we had another question that come through on the Q&A that just was
Okay.
saying, thank you so much for sharing it, as everything that you have all said has been really helpful. I think it's very important for us to speak and acknowledge what we are learning in our spaces and ourselves to share this. And as a Dom, also a lot of what I've been discussing I can relate to. So I think, you know, the more we have these little open discussions, the more we actually can get out to sort of more people out there so that everybody can be more accepting of themselves and what they have. But thank you so much, everyone, for being so open and honest. As always, you are all beautiful. I love it. Thank you.